Good evening, and welcome to Footnotes Folly. I am Professor Reginald St. John Pemberton, and tonight we open the fourth book of Herodotus of Halicarnassus, the book the ancients called Melpomene. We carry on in plain modern English, from the first line, with nothing left out, still using Macaulay's public domain translation. The plain rendering, and the muttering, are my own. This is part 19. Darius, master now of all Asia, looks north across the Danube to the cold and trackless land of the Scythians, and resolves to punish them for an old invasion. But before a single Persian crosses, Herodotus stops to tell us who these Scythians are and gives us three different origin stories: golden tools fallen from the sky, a poet who died twice, and a long, marvelous road north to one-eyed men, gold guarding Griffins, and a blessed people beyond the north wind. Let us begin.
After Babylon was captured, Darius himself marched against the Scythians. Asia was now prosperous, its population was large, and great sums of revenue were coming in, so Darius wished to take revenge on the Scythians. They had been the first to invade the land of the Medes, and they had defeated in battle those who came out against them. In this way they had begun the quarrel. As I have said before, the Scythians had ruled Upper Asia for 28 years. They had entered Asia while pursuing the Cimmerians, and they had overthrown the Medes, who had ruled Asia before the Scythians arrived. When the Scythians had been away from their own country for 28 years, and at last returned, they met with a struggle no less serious than their struggle with the Medes. They found a large army standing against them. During their long absence, the wives of the Scythians had lived with the slaves. The Scythians blind all their slaves because of the milk they drink, and this is how they prepare it. They take bone tubes shaped like flutes, insert them into the mare and blow into them with their mouths, while others milk the animal as the blowing is done. They say they do this because the mare's veins become filled and swollen by the blowing, and then the udder lets down its milk. When they have drawn the milk, they pour it into hollow wooden vessels. They set the blind slaves in a row around the vessels, and have them stir the milk. Then they skim off what rises to the top, which they consider the more valuable part, while what settles below they think less good. For this reason the Scythians put out the eyes of everyone they capture. They are not farmers, but nomads. From these slaves, and from the Scythian women, a generation of young men have been born and raised. When they learned the story of their birth, they decided to oppose the Scythians as they returned from the Medes. First they cut off the country by digging a broad trench from the Tauric mountains to the Maeotian lake, at the point where the land is widest. Then, when the Scythians tried to enter, they took position against them and fought. Battle followed battle, and the Scythians could gain no advantage. What are we doing, Scythians? We are fighting our own slaves. By being killed in battle we are making ourselves fewer, and by killing them we are making fewer people for us to rule in the future. So I think we should put aside our spears and bows, and each man should take his horse, whip, and go straight at them. As long as they saw us with weapons in our hands, they thought they were our equals and of the same birth as we are. But when they see that we carry whips instead of weapons, they will understand that they are our slaves, and once they realize this, they will not stand their ground against us. When the Scythians heard this, they did as he advised. The men opposing them were terrified by what was done, forgot about fighting, and fled. In this way the Scythians had ruled Asia, and in this way, after the Medes drove them out again, they returned to their own land. Because of these events Darius wished to take revenge on them, and he gathered an army to march against them. The Scythians say that their nation is the youngest of all nations, and that it came into being in this way. The first man ever to exist in the country, which was then empty, was named Targetus. They say, though I for my part do not believe it, that Targetus was the son of Zeus and of the daughter of the river Borysthenes. From this origin, they say, Targetus was born, and he had 3 sons, Lipaxes, Arpaxes, and the youngest, Colexes. During their reign, certain golden objects fell from heaven into the Scythian land: a plough, a yoke, a battle-axe, and a cup. The eldest brother saw them first and came near, wanting to take them, but the gold burst into flame as he approached. When he withdrew, the second brother came forward, and the same thing happened again. The gold drove these 2 away with fire. But when the third and youngest approached, the flame went out, and he carried the objects to his own house. The elder brothers recognized what this meant, and gave the whole kingship to the youngest. From Lipaxes, they say, came the Scythians called the race of the Ate. From the middle brother Arpaxes came those called Caesaroi and Traspians, and from the youngest came the royal tribe, called the Paralitai. Altogether, they say, they are called Scolatoi after the name of their king, but the Hellenes gave them the name Scythians. This is how the Scythians say they came into being. From the time of their first king Targetus to the crossing of Darius against them, they say there was a period of 1,000 years and no more. The kings guard this sacred gold with the greatest care, and every year they come to it with solemn sacrifices to propitiate it. If anyone falls asleep while watching over the gold in the open air during the festival, the Scythians say that he does not live out the year. In return, they give him as much land as he can ride around on horseback in one day. Since the country was large, they say Colexes established 3 kingdoms for his sons, and he made one of them larger than the others. In that largest kingdom the gold is kept. As for the regions farther north, above the people who live beyond this land. They say that no one can see or pass any farther because feathers are continually falling there. The earth and the air are both full of feathers, and this is what blocks the view. That is what the Scythians say about themselves and about the country above them. But the Hellenes who live around the Pontus tell another story. They say that Herodotus, while driving the cattle of Geryones, came to this land, then empty, which the Scythians now inhabit. Geryones, according to the tale, lived far away from the region of the Pontus, on the island the Hellenes call Erythea, near Gadara, outside the pillars of Herakles by the ocean. As for the ocean, they say it flows around the whole earth, beginning from the place where the sun rises, but they do not prove this by evidence. From there Herakles came to the land now called Scythia. A storm and bitter cold overtook him, so he drew his lion's skin over himself and went to sleep. Meanwhile, by a strange chance, the mares harnessed to his chariot disappeared while they were grazing. When Herakles woke, he searched for them. After going through the whole country, he finally came to the region called Hylia. There, in a cave, he found a double-formed creature, part maiden and part serpent. From the buttocks upward she was a woman, while below she was a snake. He saw her, wondered at her, and asked whether she had seen any mares wandering anywhere. She said she herself had them and would not give them back until he shared her bed, and Herakles did so on the condition that he receive the mares. She then delayed returning them, because she wanted to keep Herakles with her as long as possible, while he wanted to recover the mares and leave. At last she gave them back. When these mares came here, I kept them safe for you, and you have rewarded me for saving them, for I have 3 sons by you. Tell me then, what I should do with them when they grow to manhood. Shall I settle them here, since I alone have power over this land, or shall I send them away to you? When you see that the boys have grown into men, do this, and you will not go wrong. Whichever of them you see able to stretch this bow as I do now, and able to wear this girdle, make him the settler of this land. But whichever of them fails in the tasks I set, send him away out of the land. If you do this, you will please yourself and carry out what has been commanded. Then Herakles strung one of his bows, for up to that time, they say, he usually carried 2. He showed her the girdle and handed over both the bow and the girdle, which had a golden cup at the end of its clasp. Then he departed. When her sons had been born and had grown into men, she first gave them names. One she called Agathiosos, the next Gelonos, and the youngest Scythes. Remembering the command given to her, she did as she had been told. 2 of her sons, Agathiosos and Gelonos, could not complete the test set before them, and so they left the land, driven out by their mother. But Scythes, the youngest, completed the task and remained in the land. From Scythes, son of Herakles, they say, came the later kings of the Scythians. They also say that because of the cup the Scythians still wear cups attached to their girdles even to this day, and this was the one thing his mother contrived for Scythes. Such is the story told by the Hellenes who live around the Pontus. There is, however, another account, and this is the one to which I myself am most inclined. It says that the nomad Scythians who lived in Asia were hard-pressed in war by the Macaulay, so they left their homes, crossed the river Araxes, and came toward the Cimmerian land, for the land now occupied by the Scythians is said to have belonged in earlier times to the Cimmerians. When the Cimmerians saw the Scythians coming against them, they took counsel together, since a great host was approaching to fight them. Their opinions were divided, and both sides argued strongly, but the better opinion was that of their kings. The people thought they must depart, and should not risk battle against so many enemies. The kings thought they should fight for their land against those who were coming. People would not accept the counsel of the kings, and the kings would not accept the counsel of the people. The people planned to leave without fighting and hand the land over to the invaders, while the kings resolved to die and be buried in their own country, not to flee with the common people. They considered how many good things they had enjoyed there, and how many evils were likely to come upon them if they fled from their native land. Having made this decision, the kings divided into 2 groups of equal number and fought one another. When all had been killed by each other's hands, the Cimmerian people buried them beside the river Tirus, where their burial place may still be seen. After burying them, the people left the land, and when the Scythians arrived, they found it deserted. Even now, in Scythia, there are Cimmerian walls and a Cimmerian ferry. There is also a region called Cimmeria and the so-called Cimmerian Bosphorus. It is also known that the Cimmerians, when they fled from the Scythians into Asia, made a settlement on the peninsula where the Hellenic city of Sinope now stands. It is known as well that the Scythians pursued them and invaded the land of Media because they missed their way. The Cimmerians in their flight always kept along the sea, but the Scythians pursued them with Caucasus on their right until at last they turned inland and entered Media. This, then, is another account, and it is shared by both Hellenes and barbarians. Aristeas, the son of Castrobios, a man of Proconnesus, said in the verses he composed that he came to the land of the Macedonians while possessed by Phobos. Beyond the Macedonians, he said, lived the Arimaspians, a one-eyed people. Beyond them were the Griffins who guard gold, and beyond the Griffins were the Hyperboreans, reaching all the way to the sea. All these peoples, except the Hyperboreans, were continually making war on their neighbors, beginning with the Arimaspians. The Macedonians were gradually driven out of their country by the Arimaspians, the Scythians by the Macedonians, and so the Cimmerians, who lived by the southern sea, were oppressed by the Scythians and left their land. In this account, then, Aristeas does not agree with the Scythians about this country. I have already said where Aristeas, the composer of these verses, came from, and I will also tell the story I heard about him in Proconnesus and Cyzicus. They say that Aristeas, who by birth was inferior to none of the citizens, went into a fuller's shop in Proconnesus and died there. The fuller shut up his workshop and went away to report the matter to the dead man's relatives. When the news that Aristeas was dead had spread through the city, a man of Cyzicus who had come from the town of Artake disputed with those who said this, declaring that he had met Aristeas on the road to Cyzicus and had spoken with him. While he was arguing strongly, the relatives of the dead man came to the fuller's shop with what was needed to take up the body for burial. But when the house was opened, Aristeas was not found there, either dead or alive. In the 7th year after this, he appeared at Proconnesus, and composed the verses now called by the Hellenes the Arimaspians, and after composing them, he disappeared a second time. This much is told by those cities. What follows I know happened to the people of Melpomene in Italy 240 years after the second disappearance of Aristeas, as I found by comparing the evidence from Proconnesus and Melpomene. The people of Melpomene say that Aristeas himself appeared in their land and ordered them to set up an altar of Apollo, and beside it to place a statue bearing the name of Aristeas of Proconnesus. He told them that Apollo had come to their land alone among all the Italiotes, and that he, who was now Aristeas, had accompanied the god, though at the time when he accompanied him he had been a raven. After saying this, he disappeared. The Metapontines say they sent to Delphi and asked the god what the apparition of the man meant. The Pythian prophetess told them to obey the command of the apparition, and said that if they obeyed, it would be better for them. So they accepted the answer and carried out the commands. There now stands a statue bearing the name of Aristeas close beside the altar dedicated to Apollo, with laurel trees standing around it, and the altar is set up in the marketplace. Let what has been said about Aristeas be enough. As for the land with which this account began, no one knows precisely what lies beyond it. I have not been able to hear of anyone who claims to know it as an eyewitness. Even Aristeas, the man I was just mentioning, did not claim, although he was composing poetry, to have gone farther than the Macedonians. What lay beyond them he described from hearsay, reporting that the Macedonians were the ones who told these things. Still, so far as we were able to reach certainty by hearsay, carrying our inquiries as far as possible, all this will now be told. Beginning from the trading station of the Borysthenites, which is the central point of all the coastlands of Scythia, the first regions are occupied by the Callipygi, who are Hellenic Scythians. Above them is another people called the Elazonians. In all other respects the Elazonians and the Callipygi have the same customs as the Scythians, but both sow grain and use it for food, and they also eat onions, leeks, lentils, and millet. Above the Elazonians live Scythians who till the ground. These sow their grain not for food, but for sale. Beyond these live the Neroi, and beyond the Neroi, toward the north wind, there is an uninhabited region, so far as we know. These peoples lie along the river Hypanes, west of the Borysthenes. But after crossing the Borysthenes, the first place from the coast is Hylaea. Beyond this, as one goes up the river, live agricultural Scythians, whom the Hellenes living on the river Hypanes call Borysthenites, while they call themselves citizens of Olbia. These agricultural Scythians occupy a region extending eastward for a 3 days' journey, reaching to a river called Pantacapes, and northward for an 11 days' sail up the Borysthenes. Immediately beyond them begins a desert, which stretches for a great distance. On the other side of the desert live the Androphagoi, a people by themselves, having no connection with the Scythians. Beyond them begins a region that is truly desert and has no human nation in it, so far as we know. The region east of these agricultural Scythians, after one has crossed the river Pantacapes, is occupied by nomad Scythians, who neither sow anything nor plow the earth. This whole region is bare of trees, except for Hylaea. These nomads occupy a country extending eastward to the river Geros, a 14 days' journey away. On the other side of the Geros are the parts called the Royal Lands, and the Scythians who live there are the bravest and most numerous. They regard the other Scythians as their slaves. Their country reaches southward to the Tauric land, and eastward to the trench dug by those born from the blind slaves, and to the trading station called Kremnoi on the Maeotian lake. Some parts of it reach as far as the river Tanais. Beyond the Royal Scythians, toward the north wind, live the Melanchthonoi, who are of a different race and are not Scythian. The region beyond the Melanchthonoi is marshy, and so far as we know, inhabited by no one. After one has crossed the river Tanais, the country is no longer Scythia. The first division belongs to the Sormatai, who begin at the corner of the Maeotian lake and occupy land stretching toward the north wind for 15 days' journey. It is completely bare of trees, both cultivated and wild. Above them, holding the next division of land, live the Budinoi, who occupy a country entirely overgrown with forest of every kind of tree. Beyond the Budinoi toward the north, there is first a desert for 7 days' journey. After the desert, turning somewhat more toward the east wind, one comes to the land of the Thisigitai, a numerous people of a race separate from the others. They live by hunting. Bordering on them, in the same regions, are men called Urukai, who also live by hunting, and they hunt in this way. The hunter climbs a tree and lies in wait there for game, for trees are abundant throughout this country. Each hunter has a horse ready nearby, trained to lie down on its belly so that it will keep low, and he also has a dog. When he sees the wild animal from the tree, he first shoots an arrow, then mounts his horse and pursues it, while the dog seizes hold of it. Above these, toward the east, live other Scythians, who have revolted from the royal Scythians and so have come into this region. As far as the country of these Scythians, all the land described is level plain with deep soil, but beyond this point it becomes stony and rugged. After one has passed through a great stretch of this rugged country, there live, at the foot of lofty mountains, men who are said to be bald from birth, both male and female alike. They have flat noses and large chins. They speak a language of their own, use Scythian dress, and live on the produce of trees. The tree on whose fruit they live is called the pontic tree, and it is about the size of a fig tree. It bears fruit the size of a bean containing a stone. When the fruit ripens, they strain it through cloths, and a thick black juice flows from it. This juice is called as chai. They either lick it up or drink it mixed with milk. From its leaves, that is, the solid part, they make cakes and use them for food. They do not have many cattle, because the pastures there are by no means good. Each man has his dwelling under a tree. In winter he covers the tree all around with close white felt cloth, and in summer he leaves it uncovered. No one harms these people, for they are said to be sacred, and they possess no weapon of war. They also decide disputes arising among their neighbors, and besides this, any fugitive who takes refuge with them is harmed by no one. They are called Arimaspians. As far as these bald-headed men, there is abundant and clear information about the land and about the peoples on this side of them. Some Scythians go to them, and from those Scythians it is not hard to get information. So do some of the Hellenes from the trading station of the Borysthenes and the other trading places on the Pontic coast. The Scythians who visit them conduct their business through 7 interpreters, and in 7 different languages. Thus far, then, the land is known. But concerning the region north of the bald-headed men, no one can speak with certainty, for lofty and impassable mountains cut it off, and no one crosses them. These bald-headed men say, though I do not believe it, that the mountains are inhabited by men with goats' feet, and that beyond them are other men who sleep for 6 months of the year. This I do not accept at all as true. However, the country east of the bald-headed men is known with certainty, since it is inhabited by the Macedonians. But what lies north of both the bald-headed men and the Macedonians is unknown, except insofar as we know it from the accounts given by the peoples just mentioned. The Macedonians are said to have these customs. When a man's father has died, all the relatives bring cattle to the house. After slaughtering them and cutting up the meat, they also cut up the body of the dead father of their host. They mix all the flesh together and set out a banquet. His skull, however, they strip of flesh, clean out and gild. After that they treat it as a sacred object and perform great sacrifices for the dead man every year. Each son does this for his father, just as the Hellenes keep the day of memorial for the dead. In other respects, this people too is said to live righteously, and their women have equal rights with the men. These people, then, are also known. But as for the region beyond them, it is the Macedonians who report that one-eyed men in gold, guarding griffins, live there. The Scythians repeat this report after receiving it from them, and from the Scythians we, the rest of mankind, have taken the belief. We call these people Arimaspians in the Scythian language, for the Scythians call the number 1 Arima and the I Spu. This whole land that has been described has an exceedingly severe climate. For 8 months of the year the frost is so hard as to be unbearable. During those months, if you pour out water, you cannot make mud. You can make mud only if you kindle a fire. The sea freezes, and so does the whole Cimmerian Bosphorus, so that the Scythians settle within the trench, make expeditions, and drive their wagons over the ice into the country of the Scythians. In this way winter lasts 8 months, and even during the remaining 4 months it is cold in those parts. This winter is different in character from all winters elsewhere in the world. In the usual rainy season there is practically no rain, while in summer it rains continually. Thunder does not come when it comes in other countries, but it is very frequent in summer, and if thunder comes in winter, people marvel at it as a prodigy. In the same way, if an earthquake occurs, whether in summer or in winter, it is counted as a prodigy in Scythia. Horses can endure this winter, but mules and asses cannot endure it at all, whereas in other countries, if horses stand in frost, their limbs are destroyed by mortification, while asses and mules endure it. I think it is also for this reason that the hornless breed of cattle in that country grows no horns. A verse of Homer in the Odyssey supports my opinion, also the Libyan land, where the sheep very quickly grow horned. This is rightly said, because in hot regions horns grow quickly, while in extreme cold animals either grow no horns at all or hardly any. In that land, then, this happens because of the cold. But since my history from the beginning has sought out chances for digression, I am amazed that in the whole land of Ilias mules cannot be bred, although that region is not cold and there is no other obvious cause. The Eleans themselves say that because of some curse mules are not conceived in their land. When the time approaches for the mares to be bred, they drive them out into neighboring lands. There, in the land of their neighbors, they put the he-asses to them until the mares are pregnant, and then they drive the mares back again. As for the feathers of which the Scythians say the air is full, and because of which they say they can neither see nor pass through the farther parts of the continent, My opinion is this. In the parts beyond this land, snow falls continually, though less in summer than in winter as one would expect. Anyone who has seen snow falling thickly at close range knows what I mean without further explanation, for snow is like feathers. Because of this winter weather being such as I have described, the northern parts of this continent are uninhabitable. I therefore think that by feathers the Scythians, and those who live near them mean the snow, speaking symbolically. What has now been said reaches the farthest extent of the accounts given. About a Hyperborean people, the Scythians report nothing, nor does any nation living in this region, unless perhaps the Macedonians do. But in my opinion even they report nothing, for if they did, the Scythians would report it too, just as they report the story about the one-eyed people. Hesiod, however, has spoken of the Hyperboreans, and so has Homer in the poem of the Epigonoi, at least if Homer was really the composer of that epic. People of Delos report much more about the Hyperboreans than anyone else. They say that sacred offerings, bound up in wheat straw, are carried from the land of the Hyperboreans and come to the Scythians. From the Scythians the neighboring nations receive them in succession and carry them westward, finally as far as the Adriatic. From there they are sent on toward the south, and the people of Dodona are the first of the Hellenes to receive them. From Dodona they come down to the Malian Gulf and are passed over to Euboea, where city sends them on to city until they reach Charistos. After this Andros is omitted, for the Charistians bring them to Tinos, and the Tenians bring them to Delos. In this way, they say, the sacred offerings come to Delos. At first, they say, the Hyperboreans sent 2 maidens carrying the sacred offerings. The Delians say their names were Hyperosh and Laodice. With them, for protection, the Hyperboreans sent 5 men of their nation to attend them. These are the men now called Perpheres, and they received great honors in Delos. But when the Hyperboreans found that those they had sent out did not return, they were troubled at the thought that they would always be sending people away and never receiving them back. So they carried the offerings to the borders of their land, bound up in wheat straw, and charged their neighbors to send them onward from themselves to another nation. Thus, they say, these things come to Delos by being passed forward. I myself know of something done that resembles these offerings. The women of Thrace and Paeonia, when they sacrifice to Artemis the queen, never make their offerings without wheat straw. I know that these women do as I have said. For the maidens from the Hyperboreans who died in Delos, both the girls and the boys of the Delians cut off their hair. The girls, before marriage, cut off a lock, wind it around a spindle, and lay it on the tomb. The tomb is on the left as one enters the temple of Artemis, and an olive tree grows over it. All the boys of Delos wind some of their hair around a green shoot from a tree and place it on the tomb as well. These maidens then receive this honor from the people of Delos. The same people also say that Arginopes, who were likewise maidens, came to Delos from the Hyperboreans by way of the same nations already mentioned, even before Hyperosh and Laodice. Hyperosh and Laodice, they say, came bringing to Eilithuia the tribute which they had imposed on themselves for a swift birth, but Arginopes came together with the divinities themselves, and the Delians have assigned them other honors. The women, they say, collect offerings for them, naming them by name in the hymn composed in their honor by Olon, a man of Lycia. From the Delians, both the people of the other islands and the Ionians have learned to sing hymns naming Opes and Arge while collecting offerings. This Olon came from Lycia and also composed the other ancient hymns sung in Delos. They also say that when the thigh pieces of the sacrificial victim are burned on the altar, the ashes from them are used to sprinkle the grave of Opes and Arge. Their grave is behind the temple of Artemis, facing east, close to the banqueting hall of the Caans. Let what has been said about the Hyperboreans be enough. I do not tell the tale of Abaris, who is said to have been a Hyperborean, namely how he carried the arrow all over the earth while eating no food. If there are Hyperboreans, then it follows that there are also Hyper-Notians. I laugh when I see that many men before now have drawn maps of the earth, yet no one has explained the matter intelligently. They draw ocean flowing around the earth, which is made circular exactly as if drawn with compasses, and they make Asia equal in size to Europe. In a few words I shall declare the size of each division and what its outline is like.
And there we will pause, at the very rim of the world, among the Hyperboreans whom no traveller has ever quite reached, and their gifts wrapped in straw and passed from nation to nation all the way to Delos. Next time, in part 20, Herodotus laughs at the mapmakers, draws the whole round earth for us himself, walks us down the great rivers of Scythia, and shows us how the Scythians worship, swear, and drink from the skulls of their enemies. Mind the footnotes, and beware the folly.